Hello everyone, welcome to the third video. Here we're going to talk about the fourth topic of the Unit 5, where we're talking about organizational culture and emerging trends. The fourth topic mainly will talk about organizational change. So talking about change, it's an inevitable phenomenon for an organization, and every organization cannot really afford to have a static structure, products or policies, anything. It has to accommodate the changes occurring in the industry because the business environment is very dynamic in nature, and it is really essential to face the business challenges. So this unit will discuss about the organizational change and forces of organizational change and how to manage this change. So an organization, usually satisfies the needs of the stakeholders. The stakeholders, which we all know are the employees, consumers, and other shareholders. Besides, it's also dependent on micro and macro business environment. So the needs of the stakeholders also keep changing. And the micro and macro environment forces like the government, the competition, the customers, the economy, all of these are not really static. Okay. So there are certain forces of change which act as a leverage, which give leverage and act as a lever to initiate changes in the organization. So there are the some components of business environment which acts as the antecedents to including antecedents to for inducing change in an organization. What are these? These are mainly, as we've shown in the diagram alongside, the forces of change include workforce, competition, customers, and economy, government, technology, etc. So we'll talk about them one by one. Workforce. So at present, workforce is a very diverse group, and with differences in almost every aspect, like be it gender, age, education, etc. The attitude or behavior of the workforce will not be common, right? So the requirements and preferences vary, which result in very low satisfaction and commitment to the job and organization. Second, the second force of change is competition. So most of the industries have many organizations, for example, IT, retail, agriculture, input, food processing, a huge number of companies. So big companies, what they do is they acquire small companies, and which leads to mergers and acquisitions, right? Then the third is customers. The buying behavior of customers is changing every day. Okay, so their needs and preferences also change, and I may prefer online shopping while you and I may prefer eating healthy, but you may prefer the opposite. So the choices are more due to the presence of quantity and variety of products available in the market. Then we come to technology. So, everyday new production technologies are also emerging, and investment in new machineries are really essential for upgrading the production process and making it faster, and the delivery of service, whichever may be the business. So, business training the employees to improve their skills and knowledge to use the new technology should be done to apply technology. Then we come to our fifth force of change, which is economy. And the economy of a country may increase or decrease due to climatic conditions, international policies, etc. There may be n number of factors. Right now, as we can talk about the novel coronavirus. So the change in the exchange rate also plays a major role in operating an organization. Then the last force of change we'll talk about is government. So the government policies affect the organization, and the laws imposed by the government and the tax policies of the government affect the industry. Similarly, changes in foreign policies like export policies of the government create a really big and major impact on the organization, right? So next we'll be talking about resistance to change, right? So what is resistance? So, resistance is a negative attitude and behavior towards change, and organizational change usually faces a lot of resistance at the initial stage. Thus, it is the most critical for smooth change implementation. So, resistance to change mainly may be equal or explicit or implicit, right? So, the employees, they may openly criticize the change, or they may just not cooperate to impart the change. So the forces of resistance need to be really identified to know the causes of resistance, and the sources of resistance may be individual or at an organizational level as well. So employees may fear about the lack of knowledge and skill to implement the new technology, strategy, process, etc. They may worry about the outcome of the change practices, and so the employees, what they do, they can develop a negative opinion about the change practices. So this individual resistance is something which needs to be analyzed based on three components. So these three components are attitude, that where we are going to analyze the resistance through cognitive, affective, and behavioral ways. Okay. So resistance will be at the cognitive thinking level if the employee has doubts about the change practices and lacks commitment. Like when an employee shows stress and expresses their opinion emotionally, then the resistance will be affective. While the employees at the cognitive and affective level of resistance can be changed by educating the positive, by imparting the positive benefits of change practice. But in the behavioral component, resistance of employees will be objecting to change by refusing to accept and participate in the change process. Some employees may even show the resistance by the means of lethargy, delay in work, etc. This is called the passive form of resistance, where they show the resistance in an unconscious way. But in most cases, individuals will always operate at all three levels of resistance. So, predisposition towards resistance of change, personal resistance, and resilience and openness to change, self-concept, etc., are some of the personality characteristics of individuals which affect the acceptance of change. So, organizational barriers of change are the structural and procedural issues in an organization. Besides, interrelated subsystems may be a threat to change in the organization. So, after, if there is a resistance in change in an organization, we should also have ways how we can manage the change, which brings us to our next topic, which is managing change. So, different models of change have been helping in managing the change process. Like Kurt Lewin has devised a three-step model of change consisting of unfreezing, movement, and refreezing. As we have, I have shown it here in the slide, the three-step model change. So what happens in the initial stage, which is the unfreezing stage, is that the change process by the equilibrium state or the stable state of the organization gets disturbed. The change agent is the person who introduces the change. Okay. And the change agent makes the organization ready for accepting the change and bringing it down in their lives. So this is how is it done. It's done by educating the members that the equilibrium state of the organization is not good for its development, and the forces of resistance to change should be removed in this stage. So force field analysis is one tool which helps in overcoming the resistance, and the driving force and restraining forces of change are identified in this organization. So the status quo, the equilibrium state here, is disturbed after reducing the restraining forces or increasing the driving forces. So restraining forces, what are these? These are the forces that resist the change, and driving forces are the ones who support the change. So what we have to do, we have to we have to decrease the restraining forces and increase the drivers of change. So educational, personal rapport, support by the organization, and all these kinds of things help in overcoming the resistance to change, which brings us to our second stage, which is the movement or change. So the change process, how is it implemented? And it's implemented in the organization, and the organization has moved from the equilibrium state to the desired one in this stage. And this will take more time, as employees should move out from, they should set their personal differences aside and move out, and they should accept the change, and they must be clearly educated about it. So about the benefits of accepting the change. So mergers and acquisitions of organizations can be done successfully by the following the planned change, which brings us to the last step of the three-step model of change, which is refreezing. So the organization, after accepting change, reaches a stability, and the employees start accepting the change and will get the benefits of change. In this stage, what happens is that the organization should celebrate the success or of change to encourage its employees. And to support the change agent must bring partners who support the change. And the team of supporters for change serve as the driving forces for implementing and sustaining the changes taken in the organization. Right. So there is another model of change, which is called the Kotler's model of change. So the Kotler's model of change, what happens is, consists of 8 phases of change and tells the reasons why some change processes fail. They create by creating a sense of urgency, building a guiding coalition, create a vision, communicate the vision, empower others to act on vision, and plan for and create short-term wins, consolidate improvements and produce more change, and institutionalize the new approaches. These 8 steps help in introducing the change in an organization, which while overcoming the barriers as well. And this model is best suited and helps to re-engineer the jobs for rejuvenation of the organization. So let's go through each step one by one. So firstly, to create a sense of urgency, an organization should always convey the necessity to accept change and the ill effects of the static position of the organization. And the importance of accepting new practices should be immediately explained. And the change agent can be the CEO if the entire organization needs to be changed, or a section head if only a section of the business needs to be altered. So convincing the entire team is a really a big challenge, as they have to move out of their comfort zone, and they have to put more efforts in the change process. The situation of the company, competitors, market, customers, etc. must be analyzed for creating the urgency to change. Then we come to our second step, which is second phase, which is the building a guiding coalition. So change agents should always form a team of supporters who accept the change and then involve them in implementing the change process, and also in propagating why the change is really necessary. So a coalition of partners will always create a confidence to other members to accept the change and implement it. Okay. Then the other phase is create a vision. So the change agent, along with the team, should develop a vision and then devise the change strategy to achieve it. For example, the objective can be improving the product quality and reducing cost of production, etc. Then the next phase is communicating the vision. Now this is personally very important, and the vision must really be communicated to all the members of the organization, so that they can understand it and they can know why change is necessary and they can understand the importance of it. And in this case, the change agent and the team of the partners must use all means to express the vision to the entire organization. The top management should be able to create eagerness for change among the employees, and they can place placards and quotes on display boards. Which brings us to the next phase, which is the empower others to act on vision. So the chapters or obstacles for change must be crossed, and the obstacles can be organizational policies as well. They can be reward systems, it can be organizational structure within the organization. So the coalition partners must be empowered to take action, and new ideas must always be encouraged. Then the next phase is create short-term wins. So the outcomes of change must be clearly visible. That is when people are going to believe in your idea of change. They should see what change is happening and what is the result of the change. It should not be not visible to them. Otherwise, they lose faith in it. So the employees who are responsible for the outcome must be recognized as well and rewarded. And while planning the vision, 3 visible benefits or milestones encourage these visible benefits or milestones will encourage and attract the people who are against the change to come forward and together and accept it. Which brings us to the next phase, which is consolidation of consolidating improvements and produce more change. So the chapters in the process of transformation must be removed, and the initiatives taken must be continued, right? So it should not stop after the short-term ones. Some companies, after realizing the benefits, what they do is they'll stop their efforts, and in the due course, the momentum generated for the change slowly dies out of the organization. Hence, the strategies and activities must always be continued and maintained in the organizational system. Now comes the last phase, which is institutionalization of the new approaches. So the changed policies, the structures for implementing the change, all must be embedded in the system. And these new values created and the techniques learned must be rooted in the system. So this should be developed as the culture of the organization. They should, like, the new recruits must be selected on the basis of this only. And the change made in the job must be really included in the job description. So this is what resistance to change and managing change is all about. And which brings us to the end of our topic here. With the next topic which we're going to learn about will be equality of empowerment and quality of work life. So that will bring us to the end of not only this unit 5, but also to the end of the whole course of organizational behavior. So I looking forward to see you in the next video. Thank you.